correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience.
Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm here with my friend Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Steve. And we're going to talk some RPGs, but before we get into that, we're going to talk about Werewolf the Podcast.
So, go ahead.
Yeah. No, tell us a little bit about Werewolf the Podcast, Steve.
So, Werewolf the Podcast, for a long time, was a podcast about Werewolf the Apocalypse, the game, and they did a lot of retrospectives on various books, talked with creators. Josh did some actual play stuff, and it was a really, really good show. I mean, we even had Josh on to talk about Werewolf the game. But at some point in the not terribly distant past, that podcast has changed focus. It is still called Werewolf the Podcast. However, it now bills itself as a serial, parentheses, killer drama, and describes itself as a weekly cult show from the point of view of a not-so-nice werewolf. The show has been acclaimed by critics and fans, character-driven plots based on adult horror themes, and a chocolate layer of humor. Now, I have not given it a listen, but their description of their most recent episode is pretty interesting. It says, William, our heroic werewolf, has given himself over to the hands of Count Perigord, a direct descendant of Charlemagne, to save the people in his lord's castle. He is falsely accused of killing the Count's father and his sister, but he did neither. But I may need to go to capital letters to emphasize the but. He did take the head of the little sister as payment for the work he had done. So that seems appropriately teasing and sounds very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's cool to see, shows make pivots like this, and definitely interested to see what this is. Because, good stuff always coming out of them, so I'm excited to see what this is.
Yeah, and look, I mean, having, spoken with Josh and whatnot, I'm sure if he, ceded the podcast over to these folks, or maybe he's still involved, I don't know. I'm sure they're good people. I'm sure they're putting out quality shows, and hey, what's the worst you can do? Listen and not like it and never have to listen to it again?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you do that and you're looking for something else to listen to, go to the D20 Radio Discord, and there's a list of a whole bunch of other podcasts on the network.
Mm-hmm.
And you can check them out too.
Including us.
Yeah. You could go back to the place where you heard about the thing, and it's a weird circle.
Weird circles. That's what we're talking about this week. We're talking
Right?
about weird circles. No, we're talking about the fact that it's episode 200.
Right? Like, how did that happen?
How did we do 200 of these episodes?
Well,
How have we been doing? It's been,
coming up on 5 years.
Is that the math?
Well, so this is episode number 200.
Correct.
But if you remember, we don't count any of the actual play episodes
plays
in the numbers.
Right.
We don't. I think there was a couple, like we did those couple of short holiday update episodes we used to do around Christmas.
Oh, okay,
New
so
Year's
you're not
time.
counting those either. All right, gotcha.
Those didn't get numbers.
So we're talking about actual talk episodes.
Let me double check, because there's an easy way for me to check this. I will go to our YouTube feed.
We have a YouTube feed? I know we have a YouTube feed. I'm just being pedantic. We have a YouTube feed? Why don't you tell the audience about our YouTube feed?
All our YouTube feed is currently, you don't have to worry about seeing our ugly faces. Okay?
No.
But it does, I found out that our hosting provider will automatically populate the episodes as a YouTube video with me doing nothing other than actually setting up the YouTube account. So, I mean, why not? So, if you are so inclined, you can go listen to all our episodes on YouTube. And of course, now it's not telling me. I think, where is it? Of course, now it's not telling me how many total things we can. Maybe that's the right tab. I think it's over 240. Okay, about 251 episodes on the YouTube feed.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So you figure 51 of those episodes are not us, or at least
well,
not
and there's
us like
this one isn't
this.
there yet, and there's one that is in the can that isn't there yet. So, well, it will be
Yeah,
when people
makes
hear
sense.
this, but it isn't now when we're talking.
In the
Time
future,
fun.
time travel. Oh, yeah, 200 episodes. It's crazy. And I really love doing this podcast. I love sitting and talking about these games. And I find myself in a position now where I'm definitely trying to play more games than I have been in the past couple years. Like, it's so weird because every time I talk about, oh, I want to play more games, oh, I want to play more games, I never end up setting games up. And then now, when I'm like, okay, let's start breaking through that collection. I have, 4 games running concurrently, like not on top of each other, but like I have a monthly game and I have what looks like going to be another weekly game. And I have 2 monthly games and 2 weekly games, it looks like, or at least 2
Jeez.
bi-weekly games. I'm not complaining. I'm not. I need to get through this. The stack, it fell over. I can't get into my bedroom now.
I don't. I actually have a bookshelf that I need to get positioned down here near the command center and
Yeah.
get some of my stuff properly shelved. And I'm kind of scared to find out either how much I thought I had in physical and I don't, or how much I
How
really
much I
do have in
actually have in
physical.
physical, right? It's scary to think about. I want to put a bookshelf behind me here in this little nook corner thing.
Hmm.
I had a fish tank there,
Isn't
and
there a door there, or is it just
this is the
optical
door.
illusion? Oh, okay. Oh,
That
it
is
does
my
go a
door.
little back behind that. Okay.
So it's like riveting audio content, by the way. This is absolutely fascinating for the people listening in. And you just
Yes.
got off the thing saying about, oh, well, you can't see our ugly bugs. Yeah, they can't see the door. They can't see the nook behind me. They can't. Oh, but anyways, no, I love this hobby, and I love, this community that we have. It's crazy. It's
Well,
wild to me. At any point, I could go say some inflammatory, what, and somebody would be like, "That's not how that works." Whereas before, I could go say inflammatory, what, and people wouldn't say nothing because nobody was paying attention to me.
no, but I mean, we do. Our Discord is not always the most lively, but when it springs to life, it's very friendly and helpful. And it's more like, I think, I wonder sometimes if it's more to just like people are like, well, can I talk about this? And like,
Yeah,
okay,
I don't
fine.
care.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Yeah, I think sometimes people come in and they'll be like, "Hey, and everybody will jump on it and be like, "Yeah." And then you see the real reason for the question, the real,
Oh, we
like,
had someone new whose name escapes me as at the moment, but or had someone I believe just signed up because we mentioned Lancer in the last episode that aired
oh yeah, they were
as of us
asking about
recording
Lancer
this.
minis.
Well, Lancer minis, but also they said, "Hey, if you ever want to play Lancer, let me know. I have a one shot canned up."
Hmm. Oh,
So I scheduling is ever the challenge, but hey,
yeah, exactly. Scheduling is ever the challenge. Isn't that's the moral of the story, isn't it?
well,
At the end of the day, if you take anything away from this podcast, scheduling is ever the challenge.
no crap. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
just to sometimes get episodes recorded, right? And that's work schedule
unfortunately,
changes and everything, and that's why because our schedules don't line up the greatest, and sometimes we need an episode. Well, if you can find someone, do one, and
yeah,
so
unfortunately, life deals you the hand of cards that you get dealt, and
you
some
know
situations end up happening, and it is what it is.
sometimes time zone tomfoolery works to my benefit.
Time zone tomfoolery. Oh, I wonder how time zone Tom's been. I haven't talked to him in a minute.
But no,
Uh,
I I was thinking about this kind of some today, and just the fact that yeah, it is 200 episodes, and like I was going, well, do I have a favorite one? And no, I don't know.
I
Like in a sense,
mm,
to say a favorite one, almost does that mean that I don't like other ones as well? And I don't know if I have that. I think my favorite
boy,
thing, honestly, is the people that
that we've
having the
got to talk to.
podcast has facilitated meeting.
Right, exactly. I think that's the coolest part about this whole thing. Not only that, like I think back to episodes that we've had, and I don't know, we've had some really interesting people on. I mean, we got to talk to Seth Skorkowski,
Right? Ken
and,
Hite, Jay
and we've got
Little.
Ken Hite and Jay Little, and you know, and then I think about all the cool people we've met over the years, like Brett Bowen and all of the Studio 404 crew, and we both got to play
Lee.
Vast Grim with Brian, and you know, it's
Yeah.
just
And,
we got to
you know,
talk to Gav Quiroga, and like just
well, and then
wildness.
Brian and Alex and Colt from PGX and
Yeah,
GM Chris and all the D20 network people. And I say that meaning even, not just the other podcast hosts, but the whole Gamer Nation crew that descends on Gamer Nation Con. And
yeah, the Gamer Nation, like the titular Gamer Nation.
but yeah, it's been a weird thing, and it's like, look, to
Well,
be
you said a
completely,
number. You said a number a while ago. It's been 5 years we've been doing this podcast.
it was, I believe, in the fall of 2020 when we started it.
Yeah,
So,
and that's crazy.
get right. Like, I mean, either people like it or we're just too dumb to quit.
I mean, I said way back at the beginning that I would be sitting here talking to you if there was nobody left listening. And I think that's still true to this day. I will still find time to sit down and talk to my buddy Steve about some tabletop RPGs, whether people listen to us or not. I honestly believe that to be true.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is.
Well,
And then, and I think about all the cool con experiences we've had. Like I got to go to Texas. I've never been to Texas in my life. And I got to go to Texas for in the excuse I got to use is I'm a podcast host. What?
Right?
What? Or all the times that we've had at PGX. All the great times we had at PGX. All the great people we've met at PGX.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Brian and
Brian.
and Brian. Yeah, 3 Brians.
Yeah.
Of which, well, one of them will be on the episode that I don't even know if you realize I did an episode with Brian Shutter.
I did not realize
you Lord's guy.
Yeah. Oh, you did say about that. I just couldn't. There was no way I could make it. Last weekend was that's so off the podcast stuff. But last weekend was crazy for me.
In the now future later thing.
Yeah, in the now future later.
One, but now it isn't there yet.
Yeah. In the future feed.
In the now future later.
In the when will then be now? Now. You just missed it.
We just watched that like last weekend, I think.
I love original Spaceballs. I am super skeptical of Spaceballs 2. Just saying.
Yes, but the fact that it's Mel still.
I don't know. I watched that History of the World Part 2 TV show. It's not good. And that was Mel too. That's where I'm like, I don't know that he can still do it because I watched that and it wasn't great. I'm not saying it was bad. People liked it. I didn't. People liked it.
Well, so actually that brings me up something that's been rattling around my head. And sometimes, I'm just going to say it this way. I wonder if sometimes we don't like things because we expect them to be something they're not.
Mm.
And let me clarify on this. And where I'm going with this is you're talking about, Mel Brooks and maybe, realize this is how many years since he made the original Spaceballs. Some things in Mel's brain and the way Mel thinks about things and whatever have probably changed.
Right.
But we actually, my wife and I just finished up watching the series The Pit on, what's it on? Max,
yeah.
We
could talk about The Pit after you finish this thought.
Well,
I've watched it.
My wife has always been a big fan of ER. And when we first saw stuff about The Pit, she said, well, if I want to watch a medical drama with Noah Wiley, I'll just watch ER. Fair.
But this one's set in Pittsburgh.
Well, it is. Which they got largely right, but there's a few things that are weird. But anyway.
They got largely wrong. That's what I want to get into later.
But the thing that I realized episode and a half into The Pit is it's not trying to be anything like ER.
Mm-mm.
And as soon as you let go of that preconceivement of, because how many medical dramas have we seen that were more or less ER? I mean,
Oh
I've
yeah,
never
yeah.
really watched Grey's Anatomy, but
I think it's. I
it
always
probably
chalk Grey's
became its
Anatomy
own
up to
thing.
me. Yeah, I always everything I've seen of Grey's Anatomy is way more of a soap opera than it was ER. But ER was a
A-
soap opera, so
And then there was what, Scrubs, which was a bit more of a comedy, but
comedy. Yeah, I like Scrubs.
again, I'm not
No, I
necessarily
get you.
seeing those, but kind of that's one of those things that is the benchmark medical drama, if you will.
Hmm.
The Pit, once I realized the Pit never set out to try to be ER in anything more than it is also a medical drama,
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciated it a lot more.
So yeah, I want to get into this a little bit and just to get into the weeds because we both live in the area. The Pit exists in a fictional Pittsburgh
Sort of.
because they talk about commuting to places and going from here to there in time that does not exist in that city.
Well, here's the fun part. Not to give anything away, but there is a significant occurrence at a music festival that is kind of the core thing of the season in a lot of ways.
Right.
The only place big enough to actually have a music festival of the size that they're talking about is an hour and a half from where the hospital that is purporting to be exists.
welcome welcome to The Pit exists in a fictional Pittsburgh.
Like, they did film the exterior scenes are an actual
Yes,
Pittsburgh
yes, yes, yes,
hospital.
yes.
There's some of the interior scenes were shot in that hospital. Most of it was shot in a studio in California.
Hmm.
But it's a TV show, right? It doesn't have to be exact.
No, I don't expect it to be exact. It's just funny to me as a local to hear like, oh, we're gonna go from here to there, and we're gonna get there in 5 minutes, and it's like
You can't get anywhere in Pittsburgh in 5 minutes.
you can't you can't tell me. I don't care that you're driving an ambulance. Like traffic does not care. You're at least gonna hit a little bit of a slowdown for the tunnel because everybody's gonna hit their brakes because not everybody can fit through the tunnel. That's my theory. My theory is like the people coming up to the Pittsburgh tunnels see the opening and go, "Oh, we're not all gonna fit. We gotta slow down." And then by the end of that tunnel, we're going like crazy. We're going as fast as humanly possible to get out of there.
But I wonder, to tie this into a little bit of games, I wonder if sometimes we don't have expectations of games that we're thinking are going to be, we'll just say, because it's the first example that comes to mind, that Shadowrun is Cyberpunk plus Shadowrun is Cyberpunk Shadowrun is
plus
Cyberpunk
magic.
plus Magic. Well,
Right.
yes, but if you go into that expecting it to be Cyberpunk 2020 with Magic,
You're not getting that.
that's not what it
You're
is.
not. Yeah, I can see that. I always yeah, there's a couple games that I've gone into with expectations of what they are and they're not quite what I expected. I think a little bit and not I mean no disrespect. I love the Exalted game we're in. But a little bit of the Exalted game that we're playing in is kind of feeling like that. Like it's at its face, Exalted feels like this huge bombastic thing and we're playing something a little bit more subdued, a little bit more subtle and nuanced. Although we're making big moves, and I know this means nothing to the audience, but although we're making big moves, it's not this, we're not constantly on 100% glowing like nobody's business. We're just making these big moves quietly. And I like that. I like the don't make me stretch my muscles. Like,
No,
and I think that's cool.
but it's kind of like playing Superman as a street level superhero.
You're playing Superman as Clark Kent, who's also dressed up as a vigilante.
That's almost a better way to say it.
Like you're playing as Clark Kent, who is trying not to open up his Superman suit and is also just trying to thwart the bank robbers.
Yeah, yeah, and like I actually enjoy that kind of
Oh
aspect of
no,
that game.
I really really dig the like surface level, not super high concept things. I love the idea of everything that we've done so far. I'm excited to get back to that game next week. I'm gonna be completely honest. But yeah,
curious to see what happens next.
well, yeah, for that alone,
and we are recording it, by the way.
We are. It will be uploaded eventually. Probably like one or two more sessions,
I
and we could probably safely upload
with Deck about it, and there's a couple little things he wants to get done before we start releasing it. But yeah, just it's cool, but out of courtesy to the person who's willing to come GM it, definitely want to
absolutely
work with him on that.
No, not trying to step on any toes or nothing. But no, I've been really enjoying that, and that we get to play with cool people in that too, because we just started playing with Logan.
From the story told.
From the story told, a cool person. Man, cool people everywhere. That's all. That's all. That's the moral of the story.
Well, right. And I think, but like I said, I wonder if at times, we don't get a surface read on a game and maybe kind of discount it because on the surface, the short pitch, that seems to this or to that. And I'm not saying you should automatically, like, we all have to prioritize somehow. But I feel like had I went, I'm not going to watch The Pit because I can just watch ER, I would have missed what turned out I thought was a pretty cool, season of a show.
Well, yeah, and there's some like judging a book by its cover and then actually opening it up and taking a look deeper. There's some of that like, yeah, you have to do that sometimes to even just broaden your horizons in this hobby. I feel like sometimes you even just need to take a toe and dip it into something that you're not 100% familiar with. It's the only way that, in my opinion, it's the only way that you're gonna expand your repertoire or your played base, whatever you want to call it, and taking a step into something that you're not 100% like, I don't know that I'll like this, but I'll give it a try. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with, let's give it a shot. And what's the worst? What's the worst that could happen? You don't like it, you never play it again. Oh well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, but I wonder, like I said, sometimes but at the same point, if you're trying to shoehorn that game to be what you've pigeonholed it as, when that's not what it is, like, just for example, Exalted, and my understanding is different editions have been different this way, but that, I mean, you're darn close to what we would consider God level beings. But if you just take off to that, what's left? I'm not saying that that's how you want to play it. That's wrong, right? But like, I love how in our game, it's kind of been this kind of very cloak and dagger. Well, we can do all this stuff, but we're really trying to not let on that that's what we are.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really important thing too, is I really dig the cloak and dagger stuff in that game. And I know I'm sort of repeating myself, but it's neat.
Yeah, it's like, I've wondered too, and now that we've played a little bit, you and I have both had numerous conversations of what would you use to play Into the Badlands? And it has occurred to me that Exalted might not be a bad shout.
Yeah.
It would need a lot of setting work and maybe turn down a little bit.
Well, I wonder how much of that, though, you could...
I think this is a spirit of the game thing, though. Like, we've talked about that a lot lately, too, though.
Right. I think you're onto it there.
Of that.
I think you're onto it. I think if you had players with buy-in and you were like, okay, we're going to play it Into the Badlands inspired game. I want to keep it, keep power usage to a reasonable expectation within the setting. And you could even, I'm sure, I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure that you could even like dial back the characters by just turning the knobs down a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't dived into enough of the nuts and bolts of that engine to know if that would work, but it feels like, boy, how we're playing and what at this point my memory of that series is that, boy, it does a lot of those things.
Yeah. And you could easily do a lot of the like kung fu high wire action thematically in the game. I still go back to I still think that you could do Into the Badlands pretty well with Genesis. And I know Genesis
Possibly.
doesn't have an amazing combat system, but I feel like Into the Badlands combat needs to be thematic and like cinematic enough that you could just hand wave a lot of it.
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't know that saying Genesis doesn't have a good combat system is. I know what you mean. What
Okay.
Genesis doesn't have is a tactical nuts and bolts combat system.
Yeah, and I
What
feel like Into the Badlands doesn't have a tactical nuts and bolts combat in most cases.
right. I think Genesis is a great game when the whole table accepts the premise and plays to the spirit and not necessarily worrying about the letter of the rules.
Right.
I think that helps any game, to be completely fair, but that's my
Well,
take on it. But I think Genesis
I feel like
thrives at that state.
Genesis, and for no other reason other than I'm thinking about it, I feel like the last time I had an experience with Genesis, I felt the fatigue that I feel with very rules heavy, like Dungeons and Dragons type things.
Mm-hmm.
Where, and part of it was the crew, part of it was the game. I'll admit that because we had great Genesis games, but I don't know. I just feel like I feel like that game can get bogged down in the well, what's the rule for this? How do we do this? Or what's the exact ruling on this? How do I roll these dice? And I think you're right. If you have a table that's like, okay, let's go fast and loose and we'll figure it out on the fly. That makes a big difference.
The episode I did with Adam, I don't know how much of that you may have gotten to check out, but we were talking a little bit about convention GMing, and somehow we got into this, and he was mentioning that sometimes it seems like when you play with people who are heavily involved in the design of the game, they actually ignore more of the rules than most people when running the game. And I wonder if that's and the reason I posited for that in that conversation was that because they were so deeply involved in the design, they know what the feel that the design was trying to push you towards.
Right.
And so they go straight to that feel and don't worry about the rules that are supposed to push it there.
Right. We're not bogged down. Sorry. We're not lost in the forest through the trees. We've seen the map. We know
200 circles. That's what we're calling it.
Yeah. We know exactly where we are. We don't need to get too bogged down in all of that. We know what's meat and what's potatoes and what's, easily cut. I can see that because we've definitely played with people. Brett for one, that just is like and like a hand wave away and it's gone.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like
But
at
I
some
see it.
point,
I get it.
and I think right, not that one's right, one's wrong, but to me, that's the essence of if you're viewing it as an interactive story.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, in my opinion, that's the proper way to go about it.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
if you're viewing it as more of a tactical adventure, then maybe that doesn't work as well. And look, however you want to play the game, good for you. It's not our job to say your way's right or your way's wrong or any of that, but I think if you can either, to have it work smoothly, I think you can either worry about the rules or worry about the story, or
strike a balance between the two.
Striking the balance, inevitably one is going to get prioritized over the other.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's true. I think it all comes down to, again, your table, how you want to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Just the truth. I've heard a lot of people explain that they've had a really fantastic time with Shadowrun, and I've heard people tell me that I'm wrong, that it's not too crunchy. And the fact of it is that, okay, but on its surface, from what I've read, which is what I've been presented, I haven't got to sit down and play it at a table, is this feels like rolling buckets of dice and doing annoying calculations. And some people were like, no, well, yeah, it has some of that, but it's a lot more than that. And it's like, okay, I get that, I can be reductive at times. I'll fully admit that I will in speech hand wave things away and be like, okay, well, this feels like this, and so that, and just blip. And sometimes, yeah, I'm being reductive for the sake of just saving wind. But yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying, though, is that like use the parts that you want, and make the balance that you need to make, and make the balance that's right for you and your table. And that's at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I don't care. I don't like, and I'm not saying that to be rude. I don't care that, your table loves super crunchy combat. Fantastic. Do you like super crunchy combat? Because if you do, great. You found the right table for you. And if your table hates super crunchy combat and they just want to breeze through everything, and you found a system that is like a yes or no, like a coin flip resolve mechanic, and it works great for your table because it's all pure story, fantastic. That's wonderful. I'm glad that you found something that works for your table. I'm never going to tell somebody that they're playing games wrong, unless the only way you're playing games wrong is if you're making someone at your table feel uncomfortable or feel unsafe. And then in that case, then that's a problem. But if your table's safe, your table's having a good time, they're enjoying what's happening, you're doing it right. Sometimes there are games that I could take the rule book and throw it out the window and just make up my own rules, and everybody would have a fantastic time.
Yeah. Well, and so that actually kind of makes me think about my experiences running Havoc Brigade, which doesn't have a lot of rules in the first place.
The rules and throw them out the window and have a great time.
But I have had the experience multiple times running that where at some point it kind of devolves to, how big of a crazy thing can I do? How many dice can I manage to get in this pool? And so the idea of rolling against, as the GM, rolling any pool against it is just pointless, really.
Well,
but it just becomes how spectacular is the thing, not do you do it, it's how spectacular is it.
And I feel like with Havoc Brigade, that ends up, because of the trajectory of that game and how people comprehend that game over time, that ends up almost being your big climactic moment, to where you hit that and you're done. We're done. That's the end of Havoc Brigade, because you guys have rolled all the dice possible, and I can't even roll against that, and this happens, and so because you did this, X, Y, and Z happens, and congratulations, that's the end of Havoc Brigade.
Well, so I didn't run it this past year at Gamer Nation Con. In at least one of the sessions the year before, at one point the dice pool was so big, the way we ended up rolling it is, there's like, I'm going to call them about 6 or 7 inch octagon fold up dice trays that a lot of people have with the snaps. We took 2 of those and made a clamshell to roll the dice, because that was the only way to hold them.
Nice. But yeah, I definitely feel like Havoc Brigade builds to a crescendo, and that crescendo is this massive pile of dice. And that's fun.
I wonder, and somehow this ties into what we were just talking about. I'm not sure how, but the conversation you and I were having about the mechanics of Nightfall's S5S system before we actually hit the record button, it ties into this somehow to me. And I guess maybe this is kind of like spirit versus hardcore rules, and we were talking about, because you said you have this Terminator story you want to run, and that's the engine that drives the Terminator RPG, and I'm assuming mechanically it's not significantly different from Slay Industries,
right?
And there's an interesting mechanic in that, where on the surface it's a binary pass-fail system with degrees of success or failure, but there's an interesting way. And this is what part of what makes this system intriguing to me, is that it's got these kind of crunchy, fiddly bits in it that are actually, in my reading of the rules, almost always skewed for the players to be able to manipulate toward their potential for success. And like, there's different things like without getting too in the weeds, the game works basically on a much like Cyberpunk 2020, stat plus skill plus D10. You also roll additional D10 based on how many ranks you have in a skill, and those can determine your degrees of success. But there's a thing in there that I want to say they call it learning through experience or something, and don't quote me on that. But the concept of this is that once you achieve a certain level of skill, it is possible for you to fail on your success die, which normally is your binary indicator of success and failure, but still succeed at the thing you're doing. And there are ways, especially in combat, where you can take a penalty to your success die, but in so doing, give yourself a bonus skill die success, which is important because, and this is getting kind of into the weeds and the crunchy bits of the rules, if you have a failure on your success die, but at least 4 skill die success, you can trade that for a basic success, which in my brain works as you messed up trying to do this thing, but you're just so good at it that it worked anyway. It didn't work spectacularly, but even though you didn't do a good job, you're just good enough at whatever it is that you achieved the basic function of what you're trying. And I feel like that's a really crunchy way to get to that, but I like the idea that it's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I know that if someone just caught that clip, that's probably a whole lot of gibberish that they don't understand.
Nah, that's our problem, not ours.
but like it, and but I kind of like that like it's these things that on the surface I went, boy, this system is both crunchy and simple. And then as I started actually kind of wrapping my head around it more, I went, it's crunchy and simple, but it's designed in a way that can be manipulated to make more things happen.
Right. Yeah.
Because, and I go back to something Chris told us way, way, way back, that you don't roll unless failure is interesting, but sometimes you have to roll, but this makes is a way to make more interesting things happen more often as
I think, yeah.
function of advancement in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a way to definitely make each role feel impactful.
You know, just the fact that it's another option for success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. No, it's just I'm running out of.
Yeah, it's about. Gee, we've only done 199 episodes before this. How could we sometimes run out of ideas?
Right, especially when we're just off the cuff like this. If we didn't have a topic coming into this,
right? My work schedule got turned weird today. Is a simple way to put it, because of the holiday and all that fun stuff.
I was asleep on my couch watching Return of the Living Dead. So,
but I think since we have gone in approximately 200 circles today, maybe it's time to play Game of the Week.
Game of the Week.
Game of the Week. Game of the Week.
All right, I am posting mine up first. I have a game called The Rogue Prototype. It is a fast-paced solo RPG. Ooh. And at the bottom sort of gives you the best tagline I found for this thing. It's called Begin, Fight, Finish, and then transform this pile of scrap into the ultimate war machine and make the stars tremble. And if you die trying, start over, steal a new prototype, and prove the galaxy it's right to fear you. On its surface, basically that's what you do. You steal like a giant planet. You steal the Death Star. Not like, oh, you steal a thing. No, you steal the Death Star. This thing can blow up everything, but you got to figure out how to fix it, and then you got to figure out how to make it work. Seems fun. Seems simple.
Yeah.
It's all of $3.95. It's on sale right now. It's all of $5 regular. You know.
Mm-hmm. Based
fast, fun, and
mechanics.
Yeah. Transform your space behemoth into the ultimate weapon. It looks fun, man. It looks goofy and fast, and I like fast and goofy, and solo RPGs is something that I've been exploring around with and definitely tinkering with. And I like the idea of solo RPGs being fast.
Yeah, I actually picked up something that I mentioned a couple weeks ago in Game of the Week for solo stuff, and I haven't gotten to deal with it yet. But it's called I don't remember if you were on. I don't think you were on that. It was called Solo Micro RPG.
Yes, I've seen the solo micro RPG. It looks cool.
Yeah, it was
yeah,
cheap, so I picked it up.
I've tinkered around with solo RPGs recently because yeah, just boredom. And I learned a little bit about solo RPGs that I learned that I like them fast. Because I had picked up a couple that seemed like they would take a couple days to a couple weeks to like a month to play. And that's a little bit more of a time investment that I'm willing to give.
Mm-hmm.
I like things that I can sit down and basically play through a session while on my phone, while watching a movie or something along those lines. Or, better example, maybe not a movie that I care about, or if she's watching a show that I'm not invested in. I like stuff like this that I can pull up on my phone, read through it, roll some dice, be like, cool, dang, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I've come to the conclusion of I'm kind of digging on some solo RPGs. It's just different. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that one is called again the Rogue Prototype. So definitely something to check out there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's yours. I
Yep.
found something today that, well, it kind of also ties into kind of what we were talking about, like expectations and blah, blah, blah. The name of the game that I found is called Boldly Go.
Oh,
Now, on
I've
the
looked at
surface,
Boldly Go.
you think Star Trek. And then when you specifically look at the art, cover art, you go, yes, Star Trek, but not just Star Trek.
Nope.
Like there's other stuff here, and like this feels like this kind of it's intended just based on the art, so I am judging by its cover. This feels like it would be great for, like you talked about, wanting to run like a lower decks kind of thing and kind of goofy and sort of Star Trek. The art very much gives me the feel that it's designed to kind of be Star Trek but not be Star Trek.
I feel that. I think I definitely looked at this to run a lower decks game, and I looked at it and was like, oh, this is more than just Star Trek, and so maybe a little bit more than I'm asking for in a way. And maybe
Look,
not.
I don't know.
Maybe it gives me the freedom to go a little goofier. But yeah,
I mean,
this
it's
is
$15.
yeah, it's definitely worth a pickup. It's cool stuff.
It is. It says, in this science fiction role playing game, you and your friends are officers in Space Fleet, a military and exploration force of the Stellar Alliance. You design and take command of your own starship, filled to the brim with advanced technology and crewed by NPC shipmates that you create. You travel to the stars, meet new species, solve ancient mysteries, blah, 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 blah. So, yes, but the art makes me feel like it's intended to be more beer and pretzels than hardcore Trekkie.
Which is what I want out of a lower decks game. I want more beer and pretzels.
Like, and I say that I'm sure if you're a hardcore Star Trek person, and this is to say nothing against Star Trek Adventures, because I'm sure it's great. Modifius does good stuff.
Oh, hey,
But
Modifius.
But like, I don't know that, like, part of me. So I think part of my barrier with Star Trek is I've never been able to really get into any of the series I've tried to watch. And the people, I don't know how to say this. It feels like it's more okay to be a somewhat nerdy Star Wars fan than it is to be an only somewhat nerdy Star Trek fan. Does that make any sense? And this could be just purely my perception. I could be completely out in left field or not even on the field. But like,
no, it makes sense to me. Go ahead.
Like Star Trek people. Oh, you remember it's episode 7 of season 3 of The Next Generation, this and that, or they read off the names of the episodes, and you're like, I don't know. I'm like, you remember that one episode? And not that those people are judgmental about that, right? But like if I'm talking with, we'll say Chris or Phil or Daryl about something that happened in Clone Wars, And I go, oh, yeah, that episode of Clone Wars where this happened. They're just like, oh, yeah. And they don't, to me, seem to go as deep into the minutia of it every time. And I don't know. Maybe that's just my perception and the fact that I'm more of a Star Wars fan than a Star Trek fan, and I'm trying to justify that. But
I feel like there's a reason why in Futurama there's a joke that Star Trek is a religion. Just saying. In Futurama there's a joke that Star Trek is a whole religion. And it kind of feels like this exact conversation of, and I don't fault anybody. I if it's your favorite show, that's fantastic. I'm really glad that you love Star Trek, and I'm really glad that you can quote it. You know exactly what episode happened when, and exactly, what's going on with what. I don't know it that well. I know it as, I watched all of Next Generation and some of Deep Space Nine and some of the original series, and that's about it. I maybe watched those new movies once, and as far as anything outside of that, I watched some some Lower Decks, but I haven't. But I couldn't quote you. It's like scripture and verse. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. But hey, if you're into it, you're into it. That's cool, man.
right, yeah. Like I said, I don't mean this to in any way try and say anything bad about people who love Star Trek. I think it's great that that's how deep you're into the thing. It just, but also, and here's something I brought up. I wonder sometimes too, though, if you play these games that are, what do you want? The serial numbers filed off games, we'll call it, right? Like this, or I'm drawing a blank. That Forged in the Dark, Scum and Villainy.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if at times, if you're playing a game that is more or less the thing with the serial numbers filed off, because you're going for a thing that's not exactly the property that the game was built for, if it's better to use something that has the numbers filed off. Because of, again, going back to what we were talking about, like with the Pit and ER and all this, because you're playing, you want to do something that's very Star Trek-ish, but not quite Star Trek.
Right. Well, yeah.
If you're better to use something like this, Boldly Go, because if you're playing in Star Trek, the RPG, that people's brains go to Star Trek. The example I used, we were talking with JJ, he brought up Scum and Villainy, and but that also you could use that to play like a Firefly thing. And I know there is the old out of print, official Firefly game, but I said, I wonder if you wanted to play Firefly, and I'm sure Star Wars is more than capable of playing a very Firefly story, but if you're playing it in Star Wars, do people think Star Wars, where if you play it in Scum and Villainy, do they buy into the more Firefly concept because it doesn't say Star Wars on the cover of the book?
Probably. And I would say this is probably really good for running something like Galaxy Quest.
Mm-hmm. That was the other one I was...
Tim Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways. But yeah, that is very, very cool, man. And again, that was Boldly Go. And as always, links to everything are in the show notes. Discord, Patreon, now YouTube. Feel free to check us out. Feel free to tell us about us. Tell your friends about us.
Like and subscribe. Hold up.
Like and subscribe. Blah. Anyways. Yeah. As always, and as I've been saying since episode 1, be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Your mic cut most of that off.
Dang it. Be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at @andrpgs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.